Today, I want to talk to you about what to do when you're on a project that's not 100% creatively fulfilling and where you feel like you want to die and you can't move another keyframe and you just feel like everything is so dark and hopeless and you don't know how you ended up on this project. There's nothing for you there. There's just an endless amount of boredom and dull loss of any life and spirit, and you don't know how you ended up there, nor how do you get yourself out of there. And if you've been in animation industry like me for the past 10 years, there is no way that type of project doesn't come your way at least once, but probably more than once. And how do you overcome those times, and how do you survive those projects? Because at the end of the time, animation is a job. It's not your creative playground 24/7, 365 days in a year. You will have periods of time where you will animate mocap, or where you'll fix sliding feet, or you will animate characters in the background that don't move, or you will need to fix someone else's screw ups, or you will need to animate a shot that will end up being cut from the edit. And so many other aspects of animation that almost never get talked about. And I want to address, how do you come up to the other side of that tunnel when you see that everything is hopeless and there's nothing for you to do on this project and you just want to quit, get a job as a shepherd and shepherd sheep? So I was once at a project like that, and I remember reading a story about Jews. To give some context, Jews were escaping tyranny from the Pharaoh in Egypt, and God could have sent them to the promised land, away from the tyranny, all the way to the land of milk and honey, and that would be awesome, right? But God didn't do that. He actually sent Jews to 40 years in the desert. And for me, that story was super relatable, because that time for Jews in the desert was super useful, even though it seems like a torture. It's super useful because it built their character. It built their patience and their discipline and their obedience to God. And all of the skills they needed to acquire in order for them to become kings of the new promised land. So I was translating that to my situation as well. I was so angry that I couldn't become, a lead, that I needed to have a better project that would really challenge my skills, but I was at this dull project, and I was basically poisoning myself with my own anger. And once I read that story, I realized that that story wasn't testing my animation skills, but it was testing everything else. It was testing my humility, my patience, my integrity, and all of the skills and abilities I now need as a lead. And I always saw, and then I started seeing that project not as my final destination and as my promised land, but as my desert, just as a temporary project, temporary time and place that I needed to develop some other character skills that are separate from my artistic and technical skills. And and another story is about St. Paul, who was a tent maker. And that really resonated with me, because an Apostle Paul was a tent maker. He wasn't super rich in order to pay for his journey to spread the gospel, but he was a tent maker. And he used the money that he earned from making tents to pay for the journey he was going through in order to spread the gospel. And so he didn't identify himself as a tent maker. He identified himself as a Christian who had a higher calling. Tent making was just a way for him to ensure that he gets to do his higher calling. And that's how I saw that project as well. I didn't identify with doing meaningless task. I didn't let that bury my soul. I started seeing that just as a means to an end. Yeah, so those two stories is actually what helped me survive those kind of projects and see those times as trials and tribulations until you're actually ready for something bigger than you. So yeah, that's it. Hope this story was helpful, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.